What's up, family? My name is Drake Davis, and this is Stay in Process. I am a mental performance coach, but transparently, sometimes I think that that is not the greatest label, and I don't even really know how to label myself. But I work with athletes at all levels, anywhere from children to professional athletes on the mental side of the game. When I was growing up, I heard this saying that baseball is 90% mental, and most people train the mental game less than 10% of the time. And so, with that being said, in a world where everybody wants to train the physical, they want to lift more, they want to throw more, they want to hit more, whatever your sport is, you want to do more physical. I do think it's fair to say that it would be a greater return on investment for your energy to invest in the mental side of the game, especially if we're going to call it 90%, 80%, 70% mental. And that is my whole intention with SIP, with Stay in Process, is to actually give you tangible principles, mental models, systems that you can implement to become more comfortable with the mental game. And as you get better with the mental game, a lot of the time you naturally see your performance improve. Now, my basis for the mental game is that consistent people are consistent performers and better people are better performers. And so today we are going to go through a plethora of mental models for baseball players as they go into season. Now, transparently, this is applicable to every single sport. But with that being said, some of these have nothing to do with baseball, and it has everything to do with your life. Once again, better people are better performers. And so take that with you. There's going to be a lot here. I understand this is very wide, and I'm not going to go very deep on these because there's a lot to cover. But with that being said, I think you should take the things that land for you and leave the things that don't. One of the greatest things that you can have as an athlete is a filter, the ability to be able to filter what is right for you and what is not. And so have an open mind, listen to this, but I encourage you to take the things that really land and then leave the things that don't. When the student is ready, the teacher will appear. I'm sure you'll come back to this video, call it in a couple months, and there will be things that you hear that maybe hit differently and maybe are more applicable down the road. So thanks for being here. Let's get into these mental models and cheers. The first one comes from Trevor Moawad. This is his book, It Takes What It Takes. Unfortunately, he passed away, but he was a great mental performance coach for people like Russell Wilson. He worked with Nick Saban. He's a great coach. And he has a chapter, it's chapter 5 in this book, and it says, it takes a negativity diet. He's talking about how his father was a mental performance coach before it was even a thing. And in order for him to stay at an elite level necessary to do his job, he came up with certain principles that he lived by, that he made Trevor live by when Trevor was just in 4th grade. And here's a couple of those principles. No national news. Local weather and sports were allowed. No country music, rhythm, or blues. The word can't was outlawed in any form, and no stinking thinking. He then goes on to share some of these country songs because obviously people push back, people love country. And these country songs go, thank God in the Greyhound. You blacked my blue eyes once too often. If you don't think I love you, just ask my wife. She got the gold mine, I got the shaft. You are the reason our kids are ugly. You get the point. What he is calling on you to do here is control the controllables. And if you've ever heard anything about the mental game, everybody tells you control the controllables, almost to a point where it's mind numbing. But he's exactly right. Stoicism 101 is you can't control what happens to you, but you can always control how you respond. Control the controllables. Everybody talks about it. In this book, what he's saying here with a negativity diet is you can't control the teammates that you are around. You can't always control the environments you are in, but you can always control what you allow into your home. Understand, this is your home. This is your home. This is your home. You get to determine what you read, what you consume, what you listen to, what you allow into your energy. This is an energy game, and I think as you go into the baseball season, we have to do everything we can to protect our energy. Now, on that note, at the start of the season, it's opening day. Everybody's excited on opening day. Towards the end of the season, it's a long season, people are a little bit less excited. They're a little bit less intentional. They don't have as much energy. And so with that being said, energy is your edge. We need to do everything that we can to protect our energy. Go on a negativity diet. Do not consume from the wrong sources. If you want better thoughts, consume from better sources. Understand that stats is another thing that plays into that negativity diet. He's talking about music, he's talking about news, people, all these things. But when you are consuming your stats every day, you're looking up on social media how your buddy at that other school is doing. Like it's just a distraction. It is not good for your energy. So, principle number one is go on a negativity diet. Now, I'm a faith based mental performance coach. So, a lot of what I do is grounded in scripture. And so, throughout this video, I'm certainly going to incorporate some principles from the Bible, some things I've learned in some of the theology books I've read, like Knowledge of the Holy. And I think it's important because, above all else, identity is the deepest layer of behavior change. And when you are a Christian, your identity is in Christ, it is not in the game of baseball. And if it is in the game of baseball, what I would say to you is that you are only as stable as what you worship. And so, with that being said, if you're going to worship the game of baseball, your life is going to be inconsistent. Good luck. As we go into more of the faith based principles, I said, think high of God. The greatest thing that you can do is think high of Him. It's not that you are strong, but rather Christ is strong within you. Seek first His kingdom and His righteousness, and the rest will be given to you. These are biblical principles. But in this great book, Knowledge of the Holy, by A.W. Tozer, I think is how you say his name, it was written in the 1800s. He talks about how the greatest form of idolatry is to think low of God. It's to think low of God. He says, thinking is easy, thinking well is hard. If you're ever going to think well, you should think well of God. Now, with that being said, as you go into season, I would encourage you to keep the main thing the main thing. If you are a Christian athlete, keep the main thing the main thing. Baseball is not who you are, it is just something that you do. And there will be times where you face adversity. And the greatest thing that you can do in those times of adversity is just to think high of God. In Joshua 1:9, he commands you, do not be discouraged, do not be afraid. These are principles that are not meant to be taken lightly. It's not a gentle recommendation to, hey, just don't be afraid, don't be discouraged. No, he's commanding you to not be afraid and not be discouraged. And so I would really highly recommend you keep a high image of God. It also talks about in this book how when we try to explain who God is, we're wrong. God is so much greater than anything we can perceive. And so the greatest way that you can show God love is through faith. And in this moment, I would ask you, what does it look like? The people in your life who are the most faithful, who love God the most, what does that look like? When they love God the most, how do they walk? How do they talk? How do they behave? And a lot of the time, when you ask people, like, how do you show God love? You show God love through faith, not by trying to conceptualize how great He is, but just by having unwavering faith to the point where you are fearless. That is, in my opinion, when I see somebody who's extremely grounded by their faith, by God, they walk around with no fear. So keep the main thing the main thing. Keep your eyes healthy and your whole world will be healthy. Keep the inside of your cup, your intention, clean, and your whole world will be clean. These are biblical principles. Thinking is easy, thinking well is hard. If you're ever going to think well of God. Thinking low of God is idolatry. Now, on that note, I think it's important to be in environments that make it easy to be the person that you want to be. And so, therefore, if you are playing baseball, and you're trying to not serve the game of baseball, I think it's important for you to be in a Bible study. It's important for you to be in a small group of people that you can connect with that remind you of what the main thing is every single week. James Clear is a great author. He wrote the book Atomic Habits, and he talks about how nobody in his family was an author. Nobody in his family was an entrepreneur. And so the greatest thing that he did for his career was he joined a group. I think he actually built a group of entrepreneurs and writers. And naturally, he wrote the book Atomic Habits. And so the greatest thing you can do is join a community of people who are aligned with you and aligned with what you are chasing as well, which is above all else, God. And I think that a Bible study is a great starting point for that. Environment is the invisible hand that shapes human behavior. And we are trying every day in the game of baseball to be greater than our environment. To intentionally make it easier by joining a small group like a Bible study is something that feels like should be a non-negotiable. And this was something that I never did in my career. And honestly, I'm not surprised because you look at my results and it's a perfect representation of the process that I had in place. I was serving the game of baseball and I was only as stable as what I worship. And when you're failing in baseball pretty consistently, it makes it pretty hard to be someone who is consistent, unemotional, or stable. There are 3 things that I share with all of my athletes that they should take with them as they go into season: courage, presence, and fundamentals. There's a great clip of Curt Cignetti, who just took Indiana football to 16-0. They had their first Heisman Trophy winner in Fernando Mendoza. Shout out Fernando Mendoza. I love that cat. And he talks about how the way that they transformed this program was not by being extraordinary. It wasn't magic.
There's no magic here. It's fundamentals. I would like to think the leader, which is me, knows what he's doing and has a blueprint and a plan. Create the intangibles on your football team, the culture, the mindset, the philosophy on how you want to play.
Fundamentals. And so what are our fundamentals? Well, a fundamental in the mental game is to be courageous. Courageous is not the absence of fear. It's feeling fear and doing it anyways. You in this season, you will feel fear. You will be scared. It's inevitable. The day that you don't feel fear is the day that you should hang up your cleats. That's my belief. And honestly, my last day of my career, I was not excited to go out there and pitch. And that was kind of a signal for me that I should probably be done. But courage is feeling the fear and doing it anyways. I saw this great video on Instagram of this skier, and he's shaking before he goes, and he's doing these crazy jumps. And the woman that's interviewing him says,
"You're shaking. Are you nervous? Are you cold? What's going on?"
Yeah, I'm absolutely terrified. I do not want to be doing these tricks.
Run 1 of 3. Here we go. Troy Poppelsack wrapping up. He is going. Oh, Troy! T-Pod. There it is. The 2160.
And that is what courage is. Courage is also the willingness to execute your routine even when you don't feel like it's doing anything for you. Quick story for you. I was going on a podcast, and I'm so nervous for this podcast. I'm filling out my journal. I'm writing my affirmations. And I have this moment where I say, does any of this even work? You might watch this video and try to take things away from it, and you're doing it before a game, and you'll say, does any of this even work? And the answer is yes. That is a process to regulate yourself. You can only perform to the level that you are regulated, to the level that you feel is safe. And you just have to have the courage to do it anyways. I filled out my journal. I meditated. I prayed. I did all the things. I did my face taps, my physiology, these things that in the moment you don't feel like are going to work. And I did them even though I was questioning it. And naturally, the result was great. I ended up going into the podcast, and even though I was still a little bit anxious, I was still regulated. I talk about this scale of anxiety: 1 to 3, 4 to 6, 7 to 9. 7 to 9 is out of control. My job is to figure out when I'm in 4 to 6, can I regulate myself back down to 1 to 3? I can perform at that 1 to 3 level, and that's actually where I'm sharpest. That's where I'm at my very best. Right now, I'm probably at a 2, regulated, but still feeling some energy in my body. So what I'm trying to say is, like I said, with the courage, like I said, you're going to be scared. You're going to be nervous. It's just up to you to regulate yourself down. And that was what I was doing with the journaling process, the meditation, the affirmations, and the prayer, is trying to regulate myself. So that is what courage looks like. The next one is presence, right? In order for us to understand why presence is important, we have to understand where our ego mind goes when it's not in the present. Well, it goes to the past, it goes to the future. Why is it going to the past and the future? Well, it's going to the past because it's a familiar and known past, and it's going to the future because it's trying to predict a future. It's a mind-made projection. The book, The Power of Now, talks about how we will never cope with a mind-made projection. And so our ego wants to go to the past and wants to go to the future. And when you stand with 1 foot in the past and 1 foot in the future, you shit all over the present. And so with that being said, what is the present? The present is the unknown. And you can understand everybody is fearful of the unknown. Rory McIlroy has a great quote. He says, when you surrender to the unknown is kind to you. I would also say that in the unknown, you can walk into the unknown because you walk with the unseen. I would say that when you are in the present moment, you are in his presence. When you are in the present moment, that is where the magic happens. If we could be courageous, and we could be courageous enough to commit to the present, that is where everything good happens for you. But it's scary. You're not going to know. And that's why I think the faith piece is so important, is how do you surrender to the unknown unless you're a narcissist or unless you have faith? And for me, faith is how I'm able to jump into the unknown head first. If you leap, the net will appear. But again, you cannot go wrong in the present moment. Your ego mind wants to think about all these things that could happen. Think about your past. Just commit to the now. If we can commit to the now, we could be really great. Courage, presence. The last one is fundamentals. I would encourage you to figure out what are your fundamentals for your game? What are your fundamentals for when you're in the box, when you're on the mound? What do you do at an extraordinary level, right? We just have to do the ordinary things at an extraordinary level. That's the fundamentals. Figure out what those things are and don't miss. Figure out what the fundamentals are in your life and don't miss. My fundamentals in my life that keep me as a consistent human, consistent people, or consistent performers, the Bible, morning pages, meditation. That's really it. The morning pages are 3 pages of stream of consciousness writing. If you've seen any of my videos, I talk about morning pages all the time. But those are my fundamentals that I cannot miss. Courage, presence, fundamentals. Don't miss them. Now, the next principle that I want to talk about is the importance of process. Why do we measure process? Well, it's because it's all that's in our control. At the end of the day, you cannot control the outcome, but you can always control your inputs. It is your commitment to your process that will determine your progress. Figure out ways in your game to have process-based metrics, measurements, whatever you want to call them. If you're a hitter, you should not be measuring, oh, how many hits did I get today? You should be measuring, how many quality at bats did I put up today? If you are a pitcher, it should not be how many strikeouts did I get? How many strikes did I throw? Those aren't always in your control. You can throw a perfect strike and give up a home run. You can throw a perfect pitch and the umpire calls it a ball. And so why would we grade ourselves on something that's not in our control? It doesn't make sense. So what would you measure? You would measure the execution of a pitch. If you're a pitcher, there's a great book right here called The Mental ABCs of Pitching. You have to read. There's a chapter in here called Execution. I'm opening up to it right now. And there's a lot of great stories in the execution chapter and other chapters about Greg Maddux, which if you're a baseball player, you probably know who that is, but he's a legend in the game. And every time you ask Greg Maddux about any accolades or any status, he always says, all I do is execute one pitch at a time. Hey, Greg, what are you going to win the Cy Young? Are you guys going to make the playoffs? What about your new contract? What about your run support? All I do is execute one pitch at a time. Right? And then the story in the ABCs of Pitching execution chapter, it says, a few years ago when I was working for the Florida organization, the Marlins played a game against Atlanta at Joe Robbie Field. As it was then, Maddux pitched that particular night. He left the game with a 2-1 lead after having pitched 7 innings. The reliever gave up the tying run, so Maddux did not get the win. The Braves eventually won 3-2. After the game, he met Maddux in the parking lot. He'd test him, he says. And so how was it out there tonight, he asks. Would he complain about not getting a win, about meager run support? His answer was, not surprisingly, exemplary. He looked at me with a knowing smirk and replied, 50 out of 73. What does that mean? 50 out of 73. All that needed to be said on the subject. He had thrown 73 pitches and he had executed 50 to his satisfaction. That's a process-based mindset. No results, no explanations. Maddux evaluates his performance by assessing the ratio between intent and action, pitch by pitch, as he competes with himself first in order to effectively compete with the hitter. He works towards pitching what writer Richard Brenner called the perfect platonic game. That is theoretically simple, bottom line for every pitcher. Poet Gary Snyder might describe the simplicity of executing pitch after pitch as relentless clarity at the heart of the work. Again, the ratio between intent and action, pitch by pitch, is all that you can control. That's execution. That's an example of measuring yourself on process. Once again, the only thing that you can control. Hitters measure quality at bats. Pitchers measure execution. Can't say it enough. The next one is quick. Do not fall into the trap of resulting. Here's an example. You go out and you execute at 69%. By the way, I've seen this. You execute at 69% as a pitcher, but you give up 7 runs. Do you go, man, my process sucks because my results suck? Or do you grade yourself on process? Because guess what? Next outing, you go out and you execute at 60%, but you strike out 8 and you give up 0 runs. Are you all excited? I mean, maybe because the result's there and that's resulting. Or you can recognize that last outing you executed at 69% and gave up 7 runs. This outing you executed at 60% and you shoved. And so what does it tell us? It tells us that the result is not always a great tell of our process. And that is why we measure process, because it keeps us consistent, and consistent people are consistent performers in the long run. In the long run, there is no misalignment between the execution of a pitch, being a high execution pitcher, and getting the results you want. Jeff Bezos says in the long term, there's no misalignment between customer service, quality of product, and shareholder interest. It's the same thing. Play the long game. Execute pitches at a high clip. In the long game, it works out. Now, a quick story for resulting. If you remember the Seahawks versus the Patriots years ago, not this year, but years ago, in the Super Bowl, they threw the ball on the goal line. Run the damn ball, they say. Marshawn Lynch is in the backfield. They throw the ball, interception. Everybody slanders Pete Carroll's name. But if you actually look up the statistics, well, it will show you that it was 100% the right move to throw the football on that down. And they throw an interception. The result isn't there. Everybody jumps ship. Everybody panics. Perfect example of resulting. Statistically, it was the right move. I understand. If you're just kind of a football guy, you're like, why would you not run the football with Marshawn Lynch on the 1 yard line? But if you actually understand the odds, you understand the statistics, it was the right move. And that's an example of resulting. The next one I just wrote down, energy maxing. It kind of goes hand in hand with the negativity diet, but this is an energy game, and every single day we need to be energy maxing. That looks like getting the sleep. By the way, those are your fundamentals. Getting the sleep you need, cleaning up the diet, tracking the small habits that preserve your energy. That looks like limiting your social media scrolling. I'm looking for my brick, shout out brick. Every single one of my athletes has something called brick. And I'll put a link in the show notes below, but the brick blocks your phone from social media. Social media drains your energy. Protect your energy, protect your attention. You are what you give your attention to. And so with that being said, energy maxing looks like protecting your energy in every way possible and just preserving it, because it's a long season. And at the end of the season, you need to show up with the same level of energy that you had on day one of the season. That is what makes somebody excellent in sports, is they are the same person every single day, consistent, unemotional, and reliable. And when you have the same energy every single day and your coach can trust you to show up in the same way, that is a great way to ensure that you are in the lineup every day, in my opinion. I wrote in here, every day is opening day. Goes hand in hand with what we just said about energy maxing, about going on a negativity diet. You treat every single day like opening day. That's the level of focus and intention you bring to every single at bat, to every single outing. Do not get complacent. Every single day is opening day. Now, to piggyback off that, another biblical principle, it says in Romans 12:2, I believe, it says, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. I believe that's what it says. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. All my athletes are opening their Bibles every day. They're doing their morning pages. They're praying. They're slowing down. They're doing these things that keep their mind sharp. How do we treat every single day like opening day? Well, you have to renew your mind every day. The only easy day was yesterday. We have to wake up and overcome ourselves and get it every single day. The process isn't sexy. I'm sorry. I don't know what to say to you. It's not sexy. You have to work this every single day. But the one thing I can tell you is if you work the process will work for you. The next one I wrote down is just to stop looking at stats. I shouldn't even have to say this, but when you look at your stats, when you go look at your videos of you pitching and you're trying to break down your mechanics, you're hurting yourself. What does it do for you? Maybe the mechanics here and there with your coach, but what does looking at your stats do for you? You know this. All it does is put you in a low energy state. We just got done talking about energy maxing. Don't fall into the trap. Play the long-term game. Measure yourself on process, and let's just see how it plays out. James Clear says we don't rise to our goals, we sink to our systems. If we take the goal and we throw it out the window and we just focus on the systems, which is the process, naturally we get to the result. Naturally, we will get there. But it does nothing for you to focus all your energy on just the goal. When you're just focusing your energy on the outcomes, you're going to be inconsistent and you're going to be emotional. I do believe that the process that puts you in the best position possible to be consistent is to control what you consume. This is the negativity diet. So stop looking at the stats, and back to the comment about mechanics in the videos. I mean, maybe if it helps you, it actually helps you, sure, but I would really be intentional about limiting how often you're watching yourself. At some point, you have to go from training into trusting. When I was in my career, I was always trying to optimize my mechanics and trying to make them perfect, and it made me domed up. And now, knowing what I know, I'm consciously competent because I've learned these things. Back then, I was unconsciously incompetent. I had no idea that I didn't know. I was always breaking down my video. Fragile. How fragile? Ken Ravizza says,
feeling good is overrated. Being in the zone, overrated. You got to learn to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And the other thing I would say is get out there and compete. Play wiffle ball. Compete with your friends. It doesn't have to be a game all the time. It could be you and your buddies playing wiffle ball and battling your butt off and competing. Learn how to compete and feel bad and get the job done.
feel bad and get the job done anyways. That's what he says. Go have a good, shitty day. That's a Ken Ravizza thing. Stop caring so much about how it feels and just execute. Get the job done. Don't be the mental midget that is always consumed in your mechanics, always setting up your phone at practice to record yourself. Let it happen. Be an artist. Be spontaneous. You have an intuitive self. You have a natural learning process. We don't need to analytically think our way through everything. It ruined my career. I look back now and I cringe. Don't be that person. If you're watching this, it's because you're probably still playing. Don't ruin your career by becoming consumed in these things that are taking you out of the natural learning process. There's more on that later. We're going to get there. Self 1 and self 2. Let it happen. Be an artist. Dance with the girl that you brought to the party. What does that mean? Dance with what you got. Sometimes you're not going to feel great. Sometimes the mechanics aren't going to be there. Get over it. It doesn't matter. You can feel shitty and get the job done anyways. It's a fragile mindset to always have to feel perfect. The next one is have a small focus. Small focus is one pitch at a time. If you're a hitter, you take it one pitch at a time. If you are a pitcher, you take it one pitch at a time. Any other sport, one play at a time, one shot at a time. It is a universal truth in the mental game. Keep a small focus. In this book, I believe it is a chapter, I can't remember the chapter. I think it might be Task at Hand, but it's talking about a pitcher who is working with Harvey Dorfman. Shout out Harvey Dorfman. And he's going against a pitcher named Tommy John. Tommy John is the surgery I had on my elbow. He's a legend in the sport. The surgery was named after Tommy John. And let's call this pitcher Drake. Drake is going against Tommy John, and he's meeting with Harvey Dorfman before the outing. Drake sits down with Harvey, and Harvey says, hey, today we are going to commit to a small focus, one pitch at a time, and we're going to commit to task at hand. Pitch, location, execution. That's all that matters. Well, after 7 innings, Tommy John has gone 7 innings of shutout baseball. Drake has gone 7 innings of shutout baseball. How? Small focus, pitch, location, execution. The results are perfect for the process we have in place. Tommy John goes out there, he gives up 3 runs. Drake goes out there, and instead of going one pitch at a time, instead of going pitch, location, execution, Drake goes, wait a minute, I'm a couple outs away from winning this game. I'm a couple outs away from a complete game shutout. We're up 3-0. I got run support. By the way, I'm a complete game shutout from defeating a legend that is Tommy John. So the focus goes from small to big, and what happens? Drake gives up 8 runs. Keep your focus small. Every day is opening day. We play one pitch at a time, one moment at a time. We control the controllables, and we focus on the things that are in our control. The execution of a pitch, getting your swing off, staying committed to your approach, staying external. External is pitch, location, execution. Internal is mechanics, mechanics, mechanics. Stay external, small focus, control the controllables. The next one that I would say is behavior over feelings. I don't care how you feel, I care how you behave. Behave your way into a feeling. How? Have great body language. Keep your focus small. Once again, in self-talk, talk to yourself, do not listen. When you are on that mound, I don't care if you're scared. Everybody's scared. Do it anyways. There's a great movie or a great TV show, Band of Brothers. There's a scene with one of these guys named Blythe. Blythe is terrified. He's talking to one of his leaders, and he says, hey, I hid in the bushes. I was scared. And the leader says, do you know why you hid in the bushes? And he says again, because I was scared. And he says, no, we're all scared. And he says, you hid in the bushes because you think there's still hope. You think there is still hope that you're going to go home. And the truth is we are all dead out here. And the day that you can accept that is the day that you could be an effective warrior. Jocko Willink talks to another individual on his podcast and says the same thing.
A real warrior, if he worries about making it home, he's not worth a shit as a warrior. He might as well just stay home. And if you're going to go up and do warrior type things, you have to accept the realization that you're probably not going to make it. And once you do that, then you can become an effective warrior.
You can focus on the job.
That's right.
And so in order for you to be an effective hitter, you must accept the fact that you're going to punch out. In order to be an effective pitcher, you must accept the fact that there's going to be a day where you get lit up. And with that being said, everybody is scared. You're scared that you're going to get lit up. You're scared that you're going to fall on your face. Everybody's scared. Do it anyways. I don't care how you feel. Behave like somebody who is bulletproof. Accept death to become an effective warrior. Behave your way into a feeling. When you can't get out of your mind, you get into your body. Act as if. Jake Arrieta, in the year he won Cy Young, had written in his hat, ACE. Acting changes everything. And this guy's winning a Cy Young. And you're over here thinking, oh, I'm in college baseball. Oh, I'm in the minor leagues. I shouldn't be scared. Jake Arrieta had written in his hat ACE for a reason. Acting changes everything. What do you want me to say? Everybody's scared. Do it anyways. He has a whole chapter in the ABCs of pitching about behavior. Behave your way into a feeling. Do not try to think your way into a feeling. Behave your way into a feeling. Now, piggybacking off this idea of behavior, what I would say is if you want to play every single day, your coach needs to be able to trust that when you get into the box, when you get onto the mound, he can trust your behavior. Goes hand in hand with what we just said. But it's not always the most talented individual that plays every day. It's the one that is the most trustworthy, consistent, and unemotional. The coach knows how you are going to behave. So be somebody that's trustworthy. Behave like somebody who is consistent. When you have a tough day, be boring. Stay consistent. When you have a great day, be boring. Stay consistent. Sorry to say it, the process isn't always sexy. It's going to be a boring process at times. But if you can get really good at being boring and executing the fundamentals and being somebody who is trustworthy, behaving in a consistent way, I think it puts you in the best position possible to be successful. So behave in alignment with who you want to be. Now, my next one, I just wrote down, have fun. I created these awesome hoodies that say childlike. A lot of my athletes practice being childlike. When you're a kid, you're free of inhibitions. You're in the backyard playing wiffle ball, and you take this hack. I remember I used to pretend to be Gary Sheffield, and you take this hack and you swing and miss. You're playing with your boys. What you do is you pick the ball up, you throw it back, and you run it back. There's no analytical thought. You're not going, come on, man, get into the slot. Come on, man, get your foot down. No, have fun. Be childlike. Matthew 18:3 says the way to heaven is to make yourself less and be childlike. Now, in that Bible verse, he's calling you to be obedient. He's calling you to be dependent on the Lord. So if you're a faith-based athlete, be childlike both in the faithful aspect, in the biblical way, but also in the spontaneous and creative way like you were as a kid. You used to just have fun in the backyard, free of inhibitions, free of thoughts, free of blocks, and naturally you were nasty. So above all else, if you're in the present moment and you turn it loose and you let it rip, pull the bow back and let it rip, calculation is miscalculation, that's going to put you in the best position possible to be the most authentic version of yourself. And when you are the most authentic version of yourself playing naked, that's when we can actually see how good you are at this sport. So again, when you pull the bow back and you're calculating, you're miscalculating. Have fun, be childlike, be spontaneous, be creative. In the book Inner Game of Tennis, Abraham Maslow is mentioned. He's referenced, and they talk about peak experiences and words he used to explain these peak experiences. Spontaneous, creative, most here now, present, non-needing, non-striving, non-wishing. The answers are out there for you. This analytical voice in your head, we need to become very conscious of. We need to know when that voice is talking. That voice in my head, we named him Derek. It's your sensor. It's the serpent that is slithering around your creative Eden, your creative garden that is your mind. Know when that voice is talking and choose to not listen to it. That's the voice that says, hey man, you got to get your foot down. Hey man, get your arm up. Make your arm swing shorter. Come on, man, get to the slot. Like, that's not going to help you. Keep your focus external. Stay simple. Be childlike and have some fun. That's it. The next one is we need to get really good at separating the who from the do. Baseball is not who you are. It's just something that you do. And again, you're only as stable as what you worship. So if you treat it as your entire identity, you are destined to be a miserable human being. Ken Ravizza, there it is again. There's that great name. If you live and die by baseball, you are going to die a lot. Get really good at getting to the field and putting on the Superman suit, the uniform, transition into Superman. When the game ends, fill out your journal, take the uniform off, and transition back into Clark Kent. Separate the who from the do. It'll take you far. The next one is another ism from Curt Cignetti. He says, we're unaffected by the circumstance of the game. We're playing to a standard. There's something to take away from that. You compete to a standard, you do not compete to a scoreboard. People get really consumed in, who am I playing against? Well, the opponent is a nameless, faceless opponent. Don't care who you're playing against. You compete to your standard. That's it. And honestly, I'm kind of hesitant to even use the word compete. You create to your standard. Competition is kind of a low vibration mindset. Just go out there and be you. Be creative. Make your art. Baseball is a creative act. Let it be your art. Doesn't matter who's in the box. Doesn't matter who's on the mound. This is about you. Kobe Bryant used to say, this is a battle that's going on within me, and you're just somebody that so happens to be in the way. That's going to get destroyed in the process. It's not about them. It's about you. Stay creative. But above all else, you compete to that standard every single day. It doesn't matter if you're playing the worst team in the conference or if you're playing the best team in the conference. It doesn't matter if it's the College World Series, the World Series, or if it's game one of the season. Doesn't matter. We compete to a standard. And Curt Cignetti says, 53-7, we're competing to a standard. Success leaves clues. 16-0, Heisman Trophy winner. Beat the brakes off Alabama. Beat the brakes off of Oregon. Beat the brakes off of just about every single team they played against. And they're not even the most talented. You know, Curt Cignetti is talking about how he tries to be the least penalized team in the conference. Once again, there's a standard that they play to. They try to be the least penalized team in the nation, right? Standards every single day. I love it. Compete to a standard. Do not compete to a scoreboard. He also says, first you form your habits and then your habits form you. So identify the habits, identify the systems that are going to take you far, and then they're going to form you. So be very intentional with what these habits are. These are the habits that are going to allow you to energy max, that are going to allow you to be consistent as a human being. Be intentional with your habits. That's just kind of an add-on there. Now, this next one is about self one and self two. I just want to let you know self one is the analytical, calculating mind. Come on, man, get your hands up. Come on, man, arm swing. Like it's noise. It's the ego mind, the comparison mind. It's the voice that holds us back. And you know that voice. You know what that voice is. Self two is the intuitive mind, the natural learning process. My greatest example is when you were learning to walk, did your parents tell you, hey, Jimmy, put your left foot here, your right foot here, left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot? No way. No shot. They picked you up with love and interest, and they let you run it back. There was no judgment. They didn't label you as clumsy. They just picked you up and they let you try again, and they let you try again, and they let you try again. And because there was no judgment, you naturally learned how to walk. The same thing is to be said with your swing. The same thing is to be said with your throw. There is an incubation process in the creative process. There are ugly ducklings that naturally transform into creative swans. But if you are always judging these ugly ducklings and your self one is getting in the way of these ugly ducklings, it doesn't allow them to incubate naturally and become this beautiful creative swan. You're trying to develop a slider and catch play, and every time you throw it, you say, oh my God, I need to get out front. I don't have, my slider sucks. I need to do this and this and this. You're judging, and your calculated mind is incorrect. Calculation is miscalculation once again. Let it happen. Hold a clear image in your mind. Stay external. Let it happen. When you try hard, just know trying harder, which was my whole career, trying harder is self one. Letting it happen is self two. Trusting the intuitive mind, your body to take you there, is self two. But self one wants to look down on self two. But self one should look up to self two. Self two is so much more capable than you've ever given it credit for. So it's about time we look up to self too, and we have more respect for self too. And when we go on the field, we have the courage to go to the present, to execute the fundamentals, and to go unconscious. The reason you work so hard in practice is so that you can go unconscious. And if you're going to get on the field and let self one rule your life, come on, man, stay closed. Why do you even work hard? Don't even try and practice then, because you're not even letting yourself reap the benefits of the work that you put in. The last thing I'll say about self one and self two, self one's role is to sit in the corner, be still, and observe. Self two's role is to not be surprised when things don't go your way. Maybe you throw a ball, you spike a fastball, don't be surprised. Hold the image in your head, stay external, let it happen. Surprise is judgment. Inner game of tennis, non-judgmental awareness, not adding or subtracting from the facts. Things are not good, things are not bad. You throw a strike, you go good. You take a strike, you say bad. What does the umpire do? Strike. It's a neutral act. Your ego adds and subtracts from the facts. Judgment is nothing more than a personal egoic reaction. So again, the judgment mind, we put him in the corner, he's still and he observes. Self two, do not be surprised, because surprise is judgment. Surprise is judgment. And what does that do? It pulls you out of the present moment. And what is the present moment? What is peak experiences? What is flow state? It's consciousness without thought. Consciousness without thought. When I used to work with athletes and I would talk to them about being in green lights, performing at their very best, I would say, what are you thinking about? What are you talking about? And I always was looking for an answer. And as I got better at this, I understood that they're not thinking or talking about much. They're just consciously aware, but there's not a lot of analytical thought. And so you can imagine when you're executing pitches and you're not judging, consciousness without thought, and then you spike a fastball and you're surprised, well, it's going to pull you out of the present moment. Stay external. Do not judge. That will take you so far. Non-judgmental awareness really is that sauce. Self one, sit in the corner and observe. Self two, don't be surprised. Hold the image in your head. Let it happen. Now, my next point is all about focus. What you focus on expands. Focus is a force multiplier. Choosing what you focus on is also choosing what you don't focus on. Focus on being somebody who dominates the controllables, who does the little things right, who brings energy and effort every single day. That is in your control. Focus on being of service. In the Bible, it tells you to be of service. I'm going to pull up real quick on ChatGPT what this Bible verse is. Hang on a second. I wrote it down in my notes. I didn't write the Bible verse. So Matthew 20:26 through 28 says, "Not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first must be your slave, just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as ransom for many." And so what is it calling you to do there? If you want to be first, if you want to be the master, you must be the slave. You must be the servant. As we transition from training into trusting, we transition from off-season development into season performing. I highly recommend that you have a servant-first mindset. Whatever the team needs. If the team needs you to get a bunt down, get a bunt down. Focus on helping the team win, pitching wherever the team needs you to be. Don't get caught up in the noise. When you focus on service, naturally the results follow. But when you're focused on self, good luck. It's a team sport. Focus on helping your team. We're getting to a point now going into season where it is a distraction. Anything that is not related to the task at hand, executing a pitch, seeing a pitch, getting your swing off, helping your team win, distraction. Service first. Help your team win. If you just commit to that for the season, focusing on helping your team win, naturally the results will follow. I'm in here again saying that you're only as stable as what you worship, and you cannot serve two gods. If baseball is your God, you're not serving him. And if baseball is your God, again, you're only as stable as what you worship. Good luck. You will drown. My next point, I'm talking about moving slower. Again, a regulated nervous system allows you to create. It allows you to be at your very best. And so eat your food slower. Sit down when you eat. When you're washing your face, slow down. When you're washing your hair, slow down. When you're driving, drive the speed limit. Come to a complete stop at stop signs. Don't go in the fast lane. Let's have a regulated nervous system. When your nervous system is all out of whack, you are in survival. It's a narrow focus. You are in, call it fight or flight. You feel like nothing is safe. And so you're not able to create the life you want. You're not able to create at the level that you want because you're dysregulated. Your body doesn't feel like it's safe. And so can we practice being somebody who is regulated in your life? And if you are regulated in your life, you'll be regulated in your sports. Before the games, are you sitting in your locker scrolling, overstimulating yourself, distracting yourself? Or are you moving slow, playing ping pong with your boys, reading a book, praying, reading your Bible, doing nothing? I have some athletes color, some athletes draw, write in your journal. I don't care. But let's not overstimulate ourselves. Once again, shout out Brick. I'll put the code down below. I highly recommend every baseball player watching this should have a brick going into season. Protect your attention. In a world that's trying to steal your attention, it pays to protect yours. My next one is to be your own biggest fan. It does nothing to bury yourself. The day that you realize that you have just sabotaged yourself and this censor, ego mind, self-one voice in your head is just trying to hold you back from being great, call it the devil. The devil is mischievous, he's deceitful, but he's also beautiful. And it comes across like he's looking out for you. That voice has ruled your life for a majority of your life. And now that you are consciously competent, you are consciously aware of it, let's choose not to pour into that voice. You have to be your own biggest fan. There's a great story from Bob Rotella and Jack Nicklaus. Jack Nicklaus is the greatest golfer ever. He comes and talks to a team. He says to the team, I've never three-putted and I've never missed a putt within 3 feet. And somebody raises their hand and they say, Jack, I've seen you three-putt. I've seen you miss a putt within 3 feet. And he says, I'm sorry, sir. I think you're confused. I've never done that. He says, no, I've seen it. I'm sorry, sir. I think you are confused. I've never done it. That guy comes up to Bob Rotella after the event and says, Bob, is he crazy? Is he psycho? I've seen him do it. And Bob Rotella looks at this individual and he says, these people here are not here to learn how you think. They are here to learn how Jack Nicklaus, the greatest golfer ever, thinks. And Jack Nicklaus has selective memory. He's choosing what to focus on. He has convinced himself of a story that is empowering. There are empowering states. There are disempowering states. You have your choice. You always have your choice to determine what you focus on. But again, what you focus on expands. It doesn't discriminate. And so choose to focus on the things that serve you. Choose to be your own biggest fan. Fighter versus victim, survival versus creative, whatever you want to call it. They're two states and everybody goes back to them. You have to choose to be in the one that is more empowering. There's a great story from Clint Eastwood on choice. They ask him at 92 years old, how are you still making movies at 92 years old? And he says, every day I wake up, I choose to not let the old man in. It's a choice. You can be a victim if you want, but understand you have the freedom of choice. You do not have the freedom of consequences. I'll say it again. You have the freedom of choice. Oh, I'm a victim, but you do not have the freedom of consequence. I wrote in here, keep your agency. What is agency? It's the belief that you can change your situation. I listened to this great book, and she talks about in this book how children or individuals that feel like they have less agency are the ones that have the most trauma. When you feel like you don't have agency, a lot of the time it leads to more traumatic experiences. So no matter what, across the span of this season, let's not lose our agency. You are never out of the fight. You're always one pitch away. You are in control of your destiny. God's in control, but you're going to do the work. God, I'll take care of the quantity. You'll take care of the quality. Ora et labora, pray and work. I'll pray to catch the bus, and I will run to catch the bus. And if I don't make it to that bus, it's because it's not my bus. Have your agency. You're never out of the fight. You are able to change your situation always. It does nothing to be a victim. My next point is just to stay spontaneous and stay creative. I think one simple question in the box, one simple question on the mound. Hey, what would it look like to be spontaneous? What would it look like to be creative? A lot of the time, that will take you a lot further than your analytical thoughts. Don't be a bot. Don't be an NPC. Let it happen. Be creative. Be spontaneous. You're not so bad that you have to be perfect to perform. My next point is to watch your words. The words that I use to express myself are the seeds of my future experiences. People talk about spelling, casting spells on yourself. There's these great studies that are coming out talking about how when you tell yourself that you're a mess, it signals to your body the same emotion into your cells that of running away from a predator. And so be very careful with the words that you choose to use. Be very, very careful, because you're casting spells. The words you use to express yourself literally are the seeds of what you experience in the future. So protect yourself. Be your own biggest fan. In this book, It Takes What It Takes, he talks about, he goes to Alabama football and he says, don't say stupid shit out loud. Can we just commit to not saying dumb things out loud? Can we protect our own garden, this beautiful garden, and can we pull the weeds? That is in your control. I wrote down task at hand over everything. If it's not related to the task at hand, when you are on the rubber, when you are in the box, it's a distraction. If you need to think or you need to coach yourself up, we have performer self, we have real self, we have performer self, or we have execution self, and we have coach self. Execution self is when you are on the rubber. In the ABCs of pitching, it talks about the rubber chapter. When you are on the rubber, you are in execution mode. When you are in the box, it's a simple external focus. You are in execution mode. When you are in coach mode, step out of the box, get some distance from the box, coach yourself up. I understand there's a pitch clock, so you got to have some savvy. If you're a pitcher, coach yourself away from the mound. But when you're on that mound, you don't shit where you eat. You're in execution mode. Now, really the last thing that I want to talk about is the power of neutral thinking. It's not good, it's not bad, it just is. Once again, non-judgmental awareness. It takes what it takes. The whole book surrounds the idea of neutral thinking. It doesn't have to be good. You went 0 for 5. It's not good, but it's also not bad. It just is. Accept the present moment like you chose it. It does nothing to play that up and down game. Let's get really good at being boring. Neutral thinking. My final 2 principles: accept the present like you chose it. I've said this multiple times throughout the video. If you are the Friday guy, accept the present like you chose it. Accept the blessings from God as a form of worship. If you are the first guy out of the bullpen and you want to be a starting pitcher, accept the present like you chose it. Go be a great reliever, first guy out of the pen. If you are hitting in the 9 hole, accept the present like you chose it. Be the best 9-hole hitter you can be. Turn the lineup around and see a lot of pitches. If you're on the bench, be the best teammate you can be. Be the best sim game all-star you can be. When you're in the sim games and you're facing the pitchers that are trying to get get some work in, be the very best you can be for them. Again, service first mindset. Accept the present like you chose it. Be where you need to be when you need to be there. Be the best at whatever your role is. That is how you get to the next step. There's a great story with Admiral McRaven, and Echo Charles on Jocko Willink's podcast says, how do you become an admiral? Well, how you become an admiral is you do really good at cleaning the toilets, at being the lowest rank, right? You get really good at being the lowest rank. And then naturally, everything follows. Do your job. Now, the last thing that I'm going to share with you here comes straight from the Bible. It says in Matthew 7:13-14, enter through the narrow gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it. Following Jesus is a narrow path. I think that's very clear. You know, you are forgiven, but to follow Jesus, it does take work. It does take keeping your eyes healthy and cleaning the inside of your cup. To be the very best baseball player you can be, same thing as following Jesus. I mean, that should be your main thing. Keep the main thing. But to be consistent over the span of a season, it's a narrow path. You will be presented with many distractions along the path. Stats, call it girls, call it lust, call it social media, call it comparison, whatever it is. It's wide, it's broad, the path to destruction. Protect yourself ruthlessly. It is a narrow path and it's a boring path. But it is the path to being a consistent human being, and it is the path to being a consistent performer. I'm grateful to have you here. If you found any value in this, I ask you that you subscribe to this channel, you follow this podcast. Wherever you're listening to this, I just ask that you follow along. And most importantly, if you found any value, I just ask that you share this with somebody who needs to hear it. I'm grateful to have you here. Stay in process. It's a long season. Keep your focus small. Take it one day at a time. Keep your eyes healthy and keep the main thing the main thing. Stay in process. See you guys.